Hello, everyone's Forest Focus as Nottingham Forest secure their first win at Anfield since 1969, thanks to Callum Hudson-Odoi's trademark goal on Saturday. We'll discuss the win over Liverpool in full and ask if this is the start of a massive season for the Reds. Plus, we'll also react to news that Ibrahim Sangare is out for 2 months in the company of, first of all, I'll come to Greg last. Garry Birtles, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good to have you with us. Al fresco as ever. Sunny day where you are, so good to have you on board. Second guest today is Michael Temple. Temps, how are you?
Feeling good, thanks, Matt. How are you?
I'm well. The big question is, how is Greg Mitchell? Tell us about your weekend. A busy one?
Yeah, couldn't have gone better. Just wins everywhere, really. Started in Dortmund Friday night, saw them win, and then flew back, watched, obviously, Forest win the first of many upcoming away games, and ended up at Jack White gig, one of my favourite artists in Liverpool. So, yeah, it's been a quiet weekend as such.
And well, everyone's better than Elvis Costello, mate. I tell you.
I don't know. I think you would be hearing your singers singing before we came on.
Me.
We'll talk football, but you were also fired live, Greg, at 7:15 a.m. So you are the true warrior of this.
Yeah, thanks for that.
They wanted, they wanted to talk to someone who was at the game. So who better? Right, kick us off, Greg. Just I don't know. I mean, you were so lucky to be there in a sense. Anyone that was there, it's something that you'll, I guess, never forget as a fan. Where does it rank up there for away days, General Forest days for you?
Well, it has to be the best. It was the one when we got promoted. It was the first game I thought of about them, and that's just through like growing up and listening to my dad's tales and things like that. You knew that they were the ones going to Anfield and hoping that one day it'll come, and you knew that there was going to be that famous away day eventually. And I know we've beat big teams already, but nothing compares to that. And I just already hope it's just not that one-off amazing victory. One day maybe we get used to going over there and beating them. But I woke up still hearing that double doink of the ball hitting the post and the back of the net, and it'll just be I just can't see in my generation how that one can be beat. But like I say, it should not be the pinnacle. It should just keep going from here now.
I suppose it could be temps, because we'll get on to this obviously, but the big thing was it wasn't a fluke at all, was it?
Tactically sound. I just think the way that we set up away from home was under the microscope, wasn't it? I think a few eyebrows raised when we decided to go with the back four, but not only that, to find a way for the fullbacks to be adventurous as well. I think this is the game where we saw the value that Alex Marino brings, the manner in which James Ward-Prowse was able to occupy that left back space at times and release him left side, just created such an overload and enhanced the performance of Callum Hudson-Odoi, who looks so comfortable at this level. So a little window into what Nuno's been planning and thinking, a little window into the role for the likes of Dominguez and Yates, who've stepped up in the absence of Sangare and Danilo, and put in a real shift there. I thought the aggression of Yates first half and Dominguez was really important, actually. It wasn't a pretty performance, but what they did without the ball was important. And just seeing those patterns of play and is able to be front foot and keep two centre-halves and force Liverpool to think about what we did, allied to the changes that he made second half at the time that he made them, was just, really good to see. I think it's a feather in Nuno's cap and a real signifier that perhaps our ambition for this season can be slightly more stretching than I perhaps first thought.
I included the historical nature of it, Garry, 1969, in the intro, because you played in great Forest teams for the club's greatest manager, and you all have been to Anfield a lot and not one. Obviously, the European Cup, has Garry gone? Where's he gone?
He's gone to write an angry email to Elvis Costello.
Are you back, Garry?
It's because you mentioned how Islot never managed to do it already.
I think so. If this was recorded, I'd be editing this chunk out, but now I can't. No, we'll
I bet he's got a phone call. I bet he's got another Sky Sports are on or something.
Probably. I'll add him back in. Right. You mentioned there, actually, come back to Greg. Temp said about Nuno and perceptions of him, and Mark said this on Saturday's podcast. Do we perceive him in a kind of a different way now that bond he's getting with fans. It was good to see some photos of him out in Nottingham as well on Saturday.
Yeah, that was really surprising because he is such a quiet manager. I mean, it was, and I said this the other day, it's so hard for him coming in after Cooper. It was kind of like when Moyes comes in after Fergie or something like that. It's an impossible task, and it was a lot harder for him to try and win over the fans, which I think Saturday has pretty much done that. He's got the trust of the fans. He quietly goes about his business. The squad he's building and that incredible bench that was arguably stronger than the starting 11, and he just worked it perfectly. Everything went right for him. You saw his passion when we scored with the Famosas, and it's just brilliant. You know, he doesn't want to do the interviews. He doesn't want to be in the limelight. He wants to just keep quietly doing it, and the results speak for him, and that's absolutely fine with me. And there's a trust there now. I feel like we're trusting him. He's won 4 away games in a row. He's obviously not going to win every away game, and there's still going to be bad days at the office. But we know that he's building something, and he's already built something that's working and it's successful. And who knows where he can go with it now.
Can you hear me, Garry?
Yeah, somebody trying to phone me. Typical, isn't it?
Told you. That's all right. Right. Well, that's that question again. I included 1969 in the intro because you played in Great Forest team for the club's greatest manager, and you couldn't win there. Obviously, you went there in the European Cup and got the result you needed to knock them out. But the scale of actually winning at Anfield, just talk about how big that is and how tough it is to actually do that.
Well, as a player, you come out of the dressing room and they've got, as you go down the stairs, they've got "This is Anfield," the sign, and all the Liverpool players always tap it as they go down. And, you know, it's one of those things to sort of frighten the opposition a little bit, if you like. But it never did that to us. But they were the best team in the world at that particular point when we were playing them. You know, they were more or less unbeatable. We were the only team who could beat them in that 2-year period. And, you know, we still love beating them now. It's that team, Liverpool team, you just want to beat it. You know, it's like Derby. We want to beat Derby every time we play them. But I think sometimes Liverpool is more significant. And, you know, what it was a deserved victory. I heard Alan Shearer saying it was a deserved victory. And, you know, I think he was right. I've seen the highlights of the game. The saves that Sells made were pretty comfortable. We could have had, you know, maybe a couple more. But the start to the season, we said, I think, before a ball was kicked, the first 3 games were so important because of the following 2, the Liverpool-Brighton games. And we're sitting here, you know, delighted that we're, before the 2 games yesterday, we're in 4th place. But we're a little bit disappointed because we probably think we should be joint points with Manchester City, played 4, won 4, because those 2 home games, you know, that it's turned on its head. You know, we were very strong at home. It was a fortress. And those 2 games we probably should have won, and we should have had maximum points. And now going to Brighton doesn't actually scare you at all. And we've done, you know, remarkably well against Brighton in the past few seasons. So fantastic start. Couldn't have been better. And, you know, you've just got to take confidence from that. And you were talking, Greg, about the bench. And as players, you always looked at the opposition's bench and the strength of it. And the strength on our bench, when you saw Awoniyi there, you saw Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, you know, the strength there to be able to bring players with pace that frighten defenders to death off the bench, as they did. And, the ball for the goal was an absolute peach. You couldn't have played it any better. If that had been a Man City player or Messi or somebody, you know, they'd been purring about it. It was that good a ball to set him up for the goal. So, yeah, hopefully injury-free, we can, you know, carry on this start to the season and, you know, hopefully just remain in that top half of the table.
I just wanted to talk a bit more about Nuno and the tactics and how it all played out. So Shearer did give really good analysis, I thought, at the weekend. And this is a slide from WT Analysis on Twitter. And it shows, I was trying to find a graphic of the tactical setup and the discipline and the shape. And I think, Garry, I mean, it was built on the foundations that are fundamental to any win, I think. Discipline, sticking to a game plan, hard work. You're not going to go to Anfield and win without that, are you?
Well, that's what every pundit more or less said. You know, Forest were disciplined. I watched the Liverpool-Brentford game where Brentford, I thought, did particularly well, did similar to Forest. You know, resilient, got bodies in the way, you know, tactically aware of what Liverpool were all about. But Liverpool's class on that particular day, did shine. It came through in the end, and you thought, well, if Forest can do the same as Brentford, but with what we've got on the bench, or the pace we have, the players we have, we could maybe go one better. I think everybody, to be fair, after Liverpool's start, expected a big trouncing. To be quite honest, because Liverpool had started well. They looked absolutely threatening in every time they picked the ball up in the opponent's half. And to come away with a clean sheet from Anfield, more than anything, is unbelievable. Ask any team if they go to Anfield or to Man City and come away with a clean sheet, you're absolutely delighted. And to do that and deserve, not fluke it. It was no fluke. I think it was a terrific performance, and I think Nuno. We said before, people were talking about last season at the end, is he going to get the sack? And I said, give him the summer, give him pre-season, let him put his ideas in pre-season into those players, and I think we've seen the benefit of that. In possibly every game. Yeah, disappointment at the home, the 2 games, but we're still unbeaten.
Yeah, I think Gary's right, Temps. You can see the fruits of pre-season in, this is just one graphic, but this shape was consistent. The gaps between the midfield, the strikers, the compactness. Clearly, the game plan was to condense the middle of the field and make Liverpool go around us. And then it was on Aina and Moreno to step up, and they massively did it, didn't they?
Yeah, it was, I think, a criticism I had of Forest when they were first promoted and played that 3-5-2 is how easy it was to just walk onto our wing backs. There was very, very little of wide coverage in the wide areas, and teams got at us down the sides far too easily. I think what the dynamism of these chains of 3 here is the manner in which they concede one wing and just shuttle towards the ball. So it is becoming harder to march on our fullbacks. But also, frankly, our fullbacks are just better and more considered. And going forward, the shape changes so dynamically that if they do overcommit, as Alexander-Arnold and Robertson probably in particular do, more than anyone else in the Premier League in recent years, we're able to pick them off. The other tactical piece around Anthony Elanga only had 12 touches in the game on Saturday. And his role is to carry ball from point A to point B in a straight line as quickly as possible, and just so effective in doing that for the goal, wasn't he? It was just a model of efficiency in getting into that position, attracting defenders, and then finding the right pass. But as you pointed out in your graphic, the foundation of this victory was getting to the break without having to chase the game, being goalless, and that came from being relatively defensive, yes, deep and compact, but solid and disciplined, not flying out of these lines, knowing the shapes, knowing that press is only effective if Dominguez and Chris Wood do their role as well. Conceding the man marking, knowing that line of Anderson, Yates and James Ward-Prowse are positionally aware, know what's around them, and can trust the defenders to mop up if players try to get between the lines. Liverpool missed some chances. Let's not pretend we dominated them. But what we've found now, I feel, is a way to play against the top 6 that revolves around being in the game for as long as we can. And then when we make those changes, impose ourselves as they become more frustrated and take more risks going forward. Because those pockets of space, like the one that Anthony Elanga worked for and the one that Callum Hudson-Odoi found himself in, are positions from which we can hurt teams and score goals.
Temps, just picking up on that, the first half stats at half time, I hate stats, and this proves the point. It touches in each other's box. 18 touches by Liverpool in Forest box, no touches in Liverpool's box by Forest players. They were the stats at half time. I looked at it, I thought, blimey, that's incredible. We've not managed to get in their box, but it's still 0-0. If you didn't look at the scoreline and saw 18 touches, you'd expect, crikey, Liverpool might be 3 up or whatever. But there's the discipline for you. You're not getting down on yourselves because you're not creating anything. You're doing your job. You're doing what the manager's asked you to do, and you've gone in 0-0. And then you can build on that. And that's exactly what they did.
Spot on, guys. I think in a 90-minute exchange of attacks, we lose that game. And it's always, I think, generally the role of the fan to want attacking adventure, and you're not going to get too excited about sitting behind the ball and accepting periods of time when you're not going to have it. But the way Forest are going to beat Liverpool, for example, is to make the game shorter, to make it a 30-minute shootout when it is wide open. The fans are starting to get on the home team's back. I mean, how poor was Mo Salah? He couldn't find a pass. There were periods of time when he was making such fundamental errors. I did notice that a fair few people in your FPL league had captained Mo Salah for this fixture as well, Matt. But he was a frustrated figure, gifting the ball to Silva a couple of times late on. Just looked quite out of sorts, and he'd have been frustrated by the manner in which we set up. And I'll mention it again, that physicality and that willingness to be aggressive against opposition just within the within the realms of getting an early yellow card was really, really good to see. But yeah, tactically superb, executed very well, no lack of work rate from anybody on the pitch, and pulled off a famous result.
One other interesting graphic I'll just put up. This is, if you follow Mark R Stats on Twitter, or Mark Statsbot, they put these graphics up the game. Some of them are ridiculously detailed, but I put this one out because you can see Jota as their number 9, or wearing number 20, wasn't involved in the game. The passing network shows Liverpool couldn't get the ball into him. I think he had the one chance, I thought. Well, obviously Diaz hit the post, but he had the one chance where he could have done better. You can see how isolated we made him and how wide we pushed Liverpool. And there's one other note on our graphic: the brighter the arrow, the more the interplay. And you can see Anderson and Ward-Prowse, 8 and 18, kept the ball really well for us, and Yatesy and Dominguez on the other side. But to a great degree, Ward-Prowse made a big impact. We'll come back to that, but I'll talk about the goal, obviously. Greg, you were right behind it. In fact, you were right behind pretty much all the interesting match action when Diaz hit the post and Sells dropped it on the line. I'll ask you about those shortly. But the goal, did you think it had gone wide? I mean, just talk us through how you viewed it.
I still looked at the referee. It just seemed too good to be true. It was perfect. As that pass from Elanga to Hudson-Odoi was just couldn't have been better. And then you knew he was going to hit it. And he must have the best shot in the Premier League for that. He just hits the post and off it every time, doesn't he? It was just perfect. And the celebrations were right up there. I mean, you knew it had gone in and it just kept going. It was just, it was brilliant. And it's one that you will not forget. And Liverpool were the only ones who really didn't see the threat that Hudson-Odoi has every other game this season so far. They double up on him and he hasn't been able to do it. And maybe it's because they were the subs. Emily called it perfectly last week, didn't she, with not having Elanga and Hudson-Odoi starting. And it was just so beneficial for us the way that worked. And I think you do the same against Brighton, and Brighton are going to be worried. It's like, when are we going to be bringing the stars on? I'm glad you mentioned Ward-Prowse as well, because he was a rock. He was brilliant, absolutely superb. We thought he was there just for not just for that's unfair, but mainly for the free kicks and the set pieces. And Liverpool didn't give us those chances. You could see they were very careful not to give fouls away when we were clearly hanging around that area to try and get them. And he played superbly. And the talk from West Ham fans was he just wasn't good enough outside, open play. He was fantastic. It was the perfect debut for him.
Greg, I think as well, I think we've got to say a big thank you to Brentford. I mentioned them before, because we all know how teams go through the opposition with a fine-tooth comb before every match and look at the previous games. Well, if they looked at that Brentford performance at Anfield, which I thought was, as I said, so resilient, they frustrated Liverpool, but they couldn't hold out. And I think Nuno would have looked at that, and he had the power to bring those pacey players on and make a difference. I think that was probably the difference, that we could do that. We did exactly the same as Brentford. We're resilient. We stuck to the plan, but they couldn't quite. They had a couple of breakaways against Liverpool, but couldn't do anything with them, whereas we could and go and win the game. So I think the technology we've got in the game now really helps, to sit players down, go through all that and say, this is what I want you to do. And this is what Brentford did. And I think they did it superbly.
Just on the goal as well, Gary. I mean, Hudson-Odoi, he's probably 4 games, he's been doubled up every game. This is the first time I think he's got a fullback one-on-one. So he's waited for that moment to kind of execute that goal as he did, that quality. Just talk us through how difficult it is to do that.
Well, you've got to back yourself, and he always backs himself. To be fair, you know, it doesn't always go right for him, but he backs his own ability. He has that ability to go past you on the left-hand side, or he can check inside. You know, it's always difficult. You know, I played with Robbo, who could do exactly the same. He never knew which way he was going to go, but he was effective at doing it both ways. And I think you've got to give a little bit of criticism to how Liverpool defended that. Maybe they didn't think it was going to be as good a strike as that. But, you know, he made his mind up early. Cluffy always used to say to me, you know, a striker, make your mind up early. What you're going to do if you're in a situation that, you know, he was in. Or if you're one-on-one with the keeper, you know, you're going to go round him, or you dink it over him. Make your mind up early. And you could see, you know, his intention straight away. As he cut inside, you thought something could happen here. And my word, did it happen. It was a superb finish. And yeah, it's going to be a bit of a headache for Nuno now, because you know, it's nice to have that squad where he's thinking, oh, do I play him? Do I play him? And you know, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, the decisions he makes team wise in the coming weeks. You know, I was a bit worried about going to Brighton, but you know, Ipswich did well against Brighton at the weekend. You know, so we've got nothing to fear, and I think they will. You know, the players will realise that. And it gives you a little bit more freedom as a player. You don't go there expecting, but you know, a little bit tight, a little bit nervous. You know, you can express yourself a little bit more. So you know, I'm really looking forward to it now. It's just the disappointment of those two home games. It just really sticks in the back of your mind, thinking, right, we've gone to Southampton. Yeah, we won 1-0. Go, man. And we should have had 12 points, but we haven't. You know, we're delighted to have 8. You know, I've always been a perfectionist, whatever I do. But, you know, we're unbeaten, and that you know, that's the main part. You know, we talked about it pre-season before a ball was kicked. You know, the first few games of the season was so important to how everything else could go. And, you know, what a start. You know, it couldn't have been.
Do you know, the other thing about going back to Hudson-Odoi there, with players doubling up on him now, you've got more chance of a free kick, haven't you? And with the threat we've got, it's just going to be a nightmare for those defenders, because they can't pressure him like they used to, knowing that we were poor in that situation. If he goes down, then look what's coming. So it's going to be a real headache for teams, and starting at Brighton, hopefully.
There are 450 people watching, so do us a favour and hit like if you haven't already. It makes a big difference. A couple of shout outs quickly. I first spotted the Jota graphic on Above Average FPL, and I said I'd give them a shout out. So they go through each game on a Sunday. It's quite interesting if you want to check that out. Also, thanks to Mike Forsyth for becoming a member. Really appreciate the support, Mike. And also, finally, a quick word for our sponsors, the Trent Navigation, before we get back into it. Next home game is the 28th of September. Forest v Fulham, obviously. Straight after the match is, I'm going to have to remove that comment from Mike. Bear with me one second. There you go, you can see it all. Steve McGill, 80s and 90s mixtape, Pete's Kitchen Barbecue, 2 outdoor bars, real ales, cask beers, ciders, and more for Greg's who enjoy. Cash is accepted. He's smiling in the thumbnail. I'm behind, don't worry. Right, we're not a Liverpool podcast, Temps, but did Slot make a mistake? Just thinking out loud. He made those subs early. He put Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield. Conor Bradley came on, and I don't know if he'd not done his homework on Hudson-Odoi or not, but Hudson-Odoi had him on toast. Then, you know, was it another sign that Nuno really won the battle of the managers there, I think?
I don't know what Conor Bradley was doing during the analysis session, but he clearly wasn't concentrating on the chapter on Callum Hudson-Odoi, who likes to go to fullback, use the centre half to screen and find the back stick. I mean, we all knew what his plan was, and he clearly didn't get the memo. But yeah, he forced himself into changes because he was frustrated. McAllister went off after an hour, didn't he, for Bradley? Diaz could have been the difference maker. I think he was a threat left hand side. Some good balls into the box, forced some good saves from Matt Sells, and the one where he smashed the post. But yeah, the changes were made out of desperation, adventure, and the fact they didn't convert the first half. Slot was really smug, I felt, after he did a job on Ten Hag in the Man U game, didn't he? And then announced the tactical reasoning behind it in his post match. But he couldn't have figured that we were going to play as we did. I think they perhaps would have anticipated 3 centre halves and a different approach to that we made. And he was unable to react to the individual impact of the subs that we made with hindsight at the perfect time. So not Slot's finest day. And Nuno has been criticised in the past for not wanting to make changes. You're always a better player when you're off the pitch, when your team is struggling. But it felt like he was in complete control of his choices there. He didn't react to what Liverpool were doing, imposed our way of stifling them. Then when the time came, he pressed the button and off we went. So yeah, not Slot's finest day. And yeah, Garry does make a point about what might have been and the chances we've had in the games that we've played. We've played 4 Premier League games. We've only conceded 2 goals. And that defensive solidity is going to be the making of us this season if we are going to improve. I think we were all satisfied by that combination, in particular of Ilanga, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White, and the threat they can pose in the Premier League. If we can add defensive solidity to that, then we're going to be in a better position. And a word on Milenkovic, whose passing was simple but effective. Murillo, I thought, was absolutely outstanding. It was a fantastic ball where Morgan Gibbs-White made his run a bit early and was offside, but just held off his defense. The guy he was marking, robbed him, half turn, played this sweeping through ball, and Gibbs-White had a 1-on-1 and he missed it actually. But the ability that he has to find ranging balls, this role of James Ward-Prowse is going to have as a deep lying playmaker, allowing Morgan Gibbs-White to push further on the pitch and get on the ball where he wants to get on the ball, whilst knowing that we've still got a creative fulcrum behind him, really stands us in good stead. And yeah, I'm excited about what's to come.
I think attempts as well. I think we talk about the one that hit the post, but that was of our making. It wasn't something they created. It was
it was a Yatesy mistake.
Let it go out, and it didn't work. And so we enabled him to have that opportunity. So I think you can rule that one out a little bit. And you've got to learn by lessons when you're playing teams like that. It's like Man City as well. Brentford went there and were 1-0 up within 22 seconds, and it wasn't a battering in the end. So the big teams, are not running away with it as much as we thought they were going to. Man City just 2-1 at home. You'd have expected maybe 3 or 4, but it didn't happen. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting season.
There were a couple of nervous moments, Greg, as there's going to be. How close were you to the front of the away end? Just out of curiosity, were you right near the front?
Were you actually awake, Greg, at that point?
Say that again.
You actually awake at that point?
Yeah, damn right.
You went in the back of a police van, Greg.
Oh, come on. Low.
Those days are gone.
I'm asking because obviously there were the 2 nervous moments were in the first half when Diaz hit the post, and also Sells. Well, I think we were about half a foot away from seeing Sells as the new Matt Turner. If that had gone in,
closer.
They were big moments.
We were as low as the crossbar, so we were looking in the goal for that. And I looked at the ref and was worried for a second. I really was. I thought he was going to lift that arm and say it was a goal, but the Yates one I actually thought had gone out. So when he was.
I don't think it had. It looked like it had.
It was close, but watching it live, I thought that's gone out. So when he shot, I wasn't too worried. But the Sells one, I genuinely thought it had crossed the line, and it wasn't nice. But they're the 2 biggest chances, weren't they? Mistakes by us. And again, it was in the first half where Salah went on a run, and he was just completely caught straight away. He thought he hasn't got that pace. We absolutely had them, and I know Yates makes a very almost costly mistake, but he was fantastic. And he was fantastic because I think like Temps did the other day, you only have to put his name into Twitter and see just a flood of Liverpool fans saying he should have been sent off and he should have been this and he should have been that. And if Ryan Yates has ever got a job to do, it's that exactly, and he's done it perfectly.
How nervous were you in the stands, Greg? What I was saying on Saturday, I didn't feel nervous at all. I felt like we were in control, but it's obviously so difficult in the game. As the minutes are winding down, how nervous was the away end? It
wasn't like it was Wembley nervous. It felt like we were in control, but it was just when it got to, I think, the 5 minutes injury time. It's Forest, isn't it? We concede late on, or we used to concede late on. So there was big nerves there, but I remember like when it got to 94 minutes, I thought, well, they can only score 1 now, worst case, and it's still a draw. But it was just incredible, and that we managed the time in those 5 minutes perfectly. We nullified and we got it into the corners. I think it was Murillo. hit a have it shot into the top tier of their main stand, the Kenny Dalglish stand, and I thought, we know what we're doing here. We're managing this well. We really are, and we did it perfectly. And for the last 30 seconds, we were celebrating. I mean, they were leaving after 83 minutes. They were going out in the droves. They were queuing to get out the exits. I couldn't believe it, and they're so used to winning, I suppose, and they're not very good at handling a loss. But I think if it continues, they'll probably have a few more of them this season.
I think we've already touched on the positives, in the final third. I just got to say a big word about Milenkovic. I think he's possibly the best signing we've had this summer. We saw what he did in the Euros. His stats in there were superb, and it's exactly what we needed in that position. And I think it's him and Murillo, if they stay fit, that is going to be some partnership, because they complement each other so well. And like you say, you mentioned the fullbacks, their discipline to just tuck in when they need to as well. It's been, something to watch so far. And, if we can keep that back four as it is, then, I think we've got a lot of adventure in us going forward, because the forward-thinking players will think, right, look at that back four. Because as a striker, I used to think, look at where we've got Burns, got Lloyd, we've got Clark, we've got Anderson. We were so convinced that they could do their job. It gave us that wherewithal and that freedom to do what we did in the final third and the midfield as well. Not knowing the knowledge you've got that back four is so good and so disciplined, it just makes a hell of a difference to the people in front.
Just before I pick up on that with Temps, thank you very much to Lee Tilson. It's very generous of you, Lee, for the £10. I hope you enjoy your day on the Wirral, and I hope you're wearing a Forest shirt, just to rub it in if you're in the office today.
Yes.
Picking up on that, Temps, like what Garry says, I think he's dead right about the quality of the players, obviously better, but also, I think Garry said this in pre-season as well, the experience of the players at the higher level. Like Ward-Prowse brings a lot of nous. I know Milenkovic hasn't played in the Premier League. He's played in Serie A, 200 games. Moreno's 31. We look much more streetwise, I think. Like we won a lot of fouls by just being niggly and clever on Saturday.
Yeah, well, the point you're making is about Premier League ready signings, and I'll put Milenkovic into that quality. I think his international standing, what he's done in Italy, and frankly, what we've seen already is proof enough for me that he's ready for this level, and to shine at this level, not be the B-side to Murillo, to be the grunt, the ball winner, clearing the headers, winning his duels, and the only difference being what he does in possession. He plays short, simple passes at pace in an effective way, and he nicks the ball in turnovers. He flew out of the line to dispossess Liverpool for the goal, and it was really effective. I'd add Elliot Anderson to this as well. He's a Premier League ready footballer, despite the relative inexperience he's had at Newcastle, and looks immediately at home in our 11. So I don't necessarily buy those strugglers who are talking about waiting for the team to gel and everything else, and communicating their game plan, getting the tactics across. This is a Forest side with relatively high rate of transformation. Those four players have all started this game on Saturday and excelled. And I'll come to the defence of Matt Sells a little bit as well, because that could have been a mare for him. I think if he vacates his near post and that Diaz effort comes back and goes in off him, he's derided. Terrible handling error for a simple looping nudge, which he should catch 1,000 times out of 1,000. There were some big moments, though. There were some instinctive saves where he's had to palm it out of the lane really effectively. A couple of instances of solid hands from close range headers, and he was forced to distribute quickly as well. So I think he did well, all things considered. The highlights, which most people have seen, haven't painted him in his best light, but there was more from him across the 90 minutes. But fundamentally, how are we going to get those 12, 15 points more than last season? It's going to be by relying on those players who just do it out of instinct. I think you could plug someone like of James Ward-Prowse's quality, Alex Moreno's experience into any Premier League team, and they'd impose their way of playing for the betterment of that side. I think that's what we saw at the weekend. There was just an understanding between them, between Morgan Gibbs-White, who likes to play at pace with a fast tempo and is quite instinctive. And it's plain for all to see. we've made some, we've taken some gambles in the transfer market that had come off, perhaps not more so than Murillo. But what we've done there is signed, tried and tested, minimal risk, instant impact, and they've allowed us to make the start that we have.
The clock's ticking. We've done 35 minutes on the game, so there's a couple of things I want to move on to. The big question, and the question in the title of the thumbnail, Greg, is this the start of a huge season? And then the second question to that is, what is a huge season? When you kind of recalibrate your hopes and your dreams, you're the perfect person to ask first. What are you hoping for now?
When you say huge season, for me, that's a bit of silverware or Europe in any sense. I mean, now you look and we're only 7-1 to get relegated. That's the longest odds we've had since we've been promoted. And there's a sense that things are turning. You know, the pundits are being a little bit more quiet, and you've got Jamie Carragher last week saying that, you know, Liverpool can rest some players and they'll win 2-0, and that's great to hear. And I think now we're going to be noticed a little bit more. It'll become tougher in a sense, but a huge season has to be something from it. You know, a huge season isn't going to be mid-table or anything like that. I think, as silly as it sounds to some, a bit of silverware or a Wembley appearance, or, you know, you sneak into the Conference League or something like that. But realistically, now we have beat someone. They were saying for the first few weeks that, yeah, they haven't played anyone. Now we have beaten someone. The expectations are going to, you know, they've trebled, they've quadrupled, and they're going to be analysing us a lot more. They're going to be watching us a lot more. And with the way Nuno is, that's just not going to bother him. He's going to quietly keep going on the way he's going on and picking up the results. Let's not forget we've won 4 away games in a row now.
Greg, don't get carried away. Remember, we drew.
I'll always get carried away, and it's been working.
We drew the City ground. We beat Liverpool at City ground, so we have done well against the good teams. We won Chelsea, and we still struggled. So we don't want to get that, you know, that again this season. I don't think we will now. You know, now seeing what the situation is with the new signings and what Nuno's playing, the system he's playing. But yeah, don't get carried away with a win over Liverpool. Brighton, it's always that scenario, one game at a time. You know, let's go to Brighton, let's go and take them on, let's go and do what we did at Anfield and come away happy, and then get the home form, you know, on a roll, and, you know, become a team that nobody wants to play against.
Yeah.
Oh, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, like, the huge season is what Greg says, but I think a realistic season is maybe going from 12th to 10th, or can you break into the top half? But I was going to say to Garry, is the thing, we have to start winning home games, obviously. We've only played 4 games. If we start winning at home, I'll be more convinced and more optimistic, I suppose.
You've got to look at Bournemouth, you've got to look at Brentford, you've got to look at Fulham. Last 2 seasons, the 3 who came up went down, and everybody's predicting the 3 that came up last season are going to go straight down. You know, Leicester got a decent result, 2-0 up, lost that 2-0 lead, so one of them might just buck the trend a little bit. But I think you've got to build on what I've said about those 3 teams, you know, the Fulham, the Bournemouth and the Brentfords. They've not quite been able to, you know, go that step further because, you know, I don't think they've got as much money to spend as, you know, possibly we have. Now we have that, I think we can take a bigger step up. And I think that was proved at Anfield at the weekend. It's just about keeping the players level-headed, saying, right, that's just a one game. We've got to do this on a weekly basis because we know how cruel the Premier League can be, and just play it like that. That's the only way you can go about it.
People in the chat are still saying, you know, 40 points, 14th is all a good season. Did you want to come back in, Greg?
Yeah, because the question was, what is a huge season?
Yeah.
You know, not what is an expected season. An expected season now is, 40 points or
what's your expectation?
Mid-table.
What's your expectation?
My expectation is this isn't a one-off result. We've been playing well. We're a different squad. We're signing players to be competing against Liverpool away and winning against teams at home that are big and going for titles, and, you know, disrupting this mix of teams that have been there for so long and just carrying on, and your Palaces. So yeah, this isn't going to be a one-off for me. We're just going to continue to keep doing things like this.
What about you, Temps? In terms of what are your expectations now? Well, what would be beyond that in terms of the dream scenario that is achievable?
Top 10 finish in the Premier League is 50 points and up. That's a marked improvement on last season. And if we were to get to that milestone, it would be unbelievable progress. I think at the moment in time, without wanting to pour cold water on the fire that's kind of been burning since Saturday, what this is at the minute is an excellent result, unexpected result at Anfield, where any team is going to struggle relatively soon after they've torn Man United to pieces. They've now got a real tough schedule. I think they've got something like 7 games in 21 days, and their squad's going to be tested. We're in a slightly different position. We haven't got European football. We've now got 2 clear ways of playing against different levels of opposition in the Premier League. But both of our plan A's have worked, have produced performances and have produced results. But getting beyond 50 points in the Premier League is going to be really, really tough. I think it's within the realm of possibility, but I've probably still got us pegged at high 40s, there or thereabouts, and being more comfortably clear of relegation, but not necessarily troubling the top 10. I'd love to look again if we were to nick a result at Brighton and then get into a slightly different run of fixtures with Fulham, Palace, West Ham at home, in and amongst Leicester away, and the trip to Chelsea where we've done well. But 50 points would be a bit of a stretch target for me, and I think improving to that mid-high 40s is probably still where we're at.
Yeah, I'd like to see a score. You sound stupid saying we just want Anfield. I'd like to see it score a few more goals, but in general, over the course of the 4 games, we've only scored, is it 1 in each game off the top of my head? So probably that's the next thing to improve on, is just being consistently ruthless, which we were obviously on Saturday. We were ruthless because we didn't have huge amount of chances. We did have more than one chance.
Shots on target, though, weren't we top of the league or something for that before this game? So we're
not converting them, are they? I don't remember. Sam Johnson made some blinding saves. I sound like I'm being negative, don't I? I'm just saying we probably need to score a few more goals before I get carried away myself.
What's the situation with Awoniyi at the moment?
Well, I didn't get on, did he? So I don't know.
Out of favour, Gaz. I think Chris Wood has, through goal scoring form, made that position his to lose, and that there isn't the confidence in Taiwo's longevity and ability to start and finish a game. And Chris Wood just hasn't given him a sniff. I still expect there'll be a run of games which Taiwo will have. And he'll have to grab it and score goals, because we've seen how impactful he can be. And this is probably Chris Wood's last season at Forest, maybe his last season in the Premier League, who knows. But Taiwo's not getting in on form. Wasn't Chris Wood's most effective performance on Saturday, although he did his bit without the ball, as we discussed earlier. But I don't think that's a tight race at the minute. I think in any of these scenarios, Chris Wood is the player that's getting picked in the immediate future.
We've got Greg as well, like Jota Silva coming off the bench. He just makes an impact, doesn't he? I'm not sure he wouldn't be in my starting 11 yet, because I'd still have Elanga ahead of him. You saw what Elanga did on Saturday, but to see Jota come on, he won that header against Van Dijk. He can play through the middle or out wide, can't he, off the bench?
Yeah, and that was the thing, the header against Van Dijk. That was almost like the game's done now. Seen enough. He's a fantastic player. What a headache again. We keep saying it. This bench is as good as our starting 11 for the first time in God knows how long, and that's why we are a better team and we are a better squad than we have been so far in this Premier League era. And so the expectations already are going to be a little bit higher. And players like him coming off the bench, then Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, it's exciting, and it gives you hope and it gives you belief, and it does make you get a little bit too excited, which I'm all here for that. That's exactly why we follow the sport. Dream a bit.
We did it without Sosa, without Bolly, and Sangare as well, who we'll come on to. So there's obviously massive depth there. Just before we come on to Sangare, word for our second sponsors, Global Telemetrics. Safe and secure like the Forest back four, as the graphic says. £2.3 million or £2.6 million worth of vehicles recovered last month, £39 million last year. So if you've got a car or a commercial vehicle or anything, you want to stop getting nicked, then Global Telemetrics are the people for you. Thanks for their support as well. They've been with us for a while and they'll be with us for a bit longer. So thanks for their backing. Right, Ibrahim Sangare, reportedly out for 2 months with a hamstring injury. I was contacted by a doctor who's worked in sports medicine who knows about this stuff, and he said he thought it might be he thought 2 months might be conservative, and I see another report saying 3 months. I mean, on the face of it, Garry, it is a blow, but I guess we have shown we can cope without him.
Yeah, it's a blow because we've got no Danilo as well. He's out as well for a couple of months with the ankle problem. So you've got 2 out, and if you lose another, then it becomes a little bit more concerning. The international breaks are helping a little bit, I think, for the players who aren't actually appearing for their countries in those games. But you've got to try and protect as much as possible. It's difficult in the Premier League because the nature of it. We've always said it's just so frenetic. It's 100 miles an hour at times. So you just got to try and take it easy a little bit more in training, I think, maybe, with all the games coming fast and furious. And you've seen how Haaland benefited from not playing in the Euros. He should have got his hat trick to create another record at the weekend, but didn't. But he's saying how important it is, to have that breather and not play so many games in that respect. So it's about wrapping them up in cotton wool, even maybe this early in the season. Because if you are losing players of that quality, you want the ones who are coming in to replace to stay fit, to stay safe, and produce what they did at Anfield.
What do you think about it, Thames? People in the comments are saying, it's good for us, and we're better without him. I don't know if that's a bit revisionist or not, because I do think he did good work without the ball. He did have limits, I think, but it's interesting to see how we cope now in terms of, do you just slot Yates in there? Do you play it? Will we see more 3-man midfields with Ward-Prowse in and Yates and Anderson? That's the interesting how Nuno goes about it now, I think, for me.
The sad thing with Sangare is that anyone that watched Forest last season could see that at the various junctures, he was either poor or injured. And he disproved that with the manner in which he bounced back. First few games, good work rate, tidy enough on the ball, but his ball winning, his positioning, his physicality was there for all to see. And I think it improved the side. Unfortunately, now he's going to be out. And I do think Forest lean towards the optimistic forecasts, at least in their PR around injuries. Danilo's injury is not an 8-week injury. You don't come back from a broken ankle in that time period. It'll be longer. And I think the same is probably true of Sangare if he has ripped his hamstring. But the pleasing thing is the depth and what's in behind them. Dominguez, who'd probably been written off, he was so far down that list of players who are going to get a start in and around central midfield, has forced his way back in and been effective. He's got a bit of utility value, as is Elliot Anderson. James Ward-Prowse and Yates are players that you're going to trust, obviously, and Morgan Gibbs-White is an automatic pick. So I'm less concerned this season. If we'd have lost both of those players at this point last season, we wouldn't quite have had the same supporting cast. I don't think we'd be getting the results that we've got now. My hunch is that Sangare needs to come back, be fit and play consistently well if he's going to have a long-term future at Forest. I think he'd struggle to bounce back from 2 ravaged seasons for whatever the reason. Just not being able to get on the park and make a difference consistently is going to cost any player if that repeats itself in the following season. But my projection now is that Sangare and Danilo will both be out for longer than we feared, and it's up to those guys around them to make sure that they're missed as little as possible, because plan A again at the start of the season was for them both to be involved in the side.
I suppose, we can't discount Ryan Yates again, Greg, can we, as a number 6 or whatever you want him to be? Because on Saturday, he was pushing to be man of the match for us again in a different way. The way he went about it with McAllister, and I'm sure Liverpool fans hated him in the ground. Ryan Yates keeps rising to every challenge, doesn't he?
Yeah, just pure determination, grit, belief from him, really. And he was superb. And I do wonder what the choice would have been if Sangare was fit. But Yates, again, has proven his worth. And when players like Sangare do come back, it's going to be extremely hard for them to fight their way back into a consistent position into that team, because Yates just always keeps doing it, doesn't he? No matter what league we're in, the opposition, he always seems to be that player that we're talking about after. And he was superb, other than the mistake, the freak mistake. But he just annoys them, and he gets things, and he gets these free kicks, and he does everything that's asked for him, and he's just so energetic. I think he's got to be up there with probably the fittest player in our squad. His energy, his work rate, and he does the things that aren't noticed. And it's just nice to have it, and have him being that academy player as well. That's huge, and you can just see how much he believes in his ability more than a lot of us out on the outside do. So yeah, superb.
I think he does it easy. That's the thing about Ryan Yates. He realises, like Clint Eastwood said in the film, a good man always knows his limitations. And I think he realises what he can do and what he can't do. It's like Cloughie always used to say, right, so-and-so, you're not as good, just give it to the little fat lad on the left. And that's what it is. If you know that your limitation is to that extent, then, it's good that players, I knew my limitations. You try things now and again to go beyond that, and Ryan will do that. And he's always liable to pop up with a strike from 25 yards or score as a header. But I think Nuno's got into his mind as to what he wants him to do on a weekly basis, and I think he's doing that, and you've got to give him credit for that.
Yeah,
and
Nuno's managed him very well. Yeah. Nuno's managed him very well. I give Nuno credit for that. He's playing really well. 530 people watching. Do us a favour and hit like if you haven't already. I know I'd bang the drum, but it does make a big difference. So appreciate if people do that. Last talking point, Temps quickly. Premier League squad was announced on Friday. 25-man squad has 24 players in it. Danilo's in it. The interesting omission is Emmanuel Dennis. I mean, doesn't say a lot of his prospects, does it, if he's not even just making up the squad? I guess, is that the thinking, maybe an emergency free transfer or something, if we can have space for that?
The bomb squad is an important tactic in a sense of fostering that togetherness from those lads who are going to be in the trenches, trusted and selected from. And Emmanuel Dennis is so far from that. It was obviously decided internally that the potential opportunity to sign a free agent outweighed the need to put him in the squad. There'd have to be a lot of injured players for Emmanuel Dennis to pop up on the left-hand side for Forest. So I think it's sensible planning. It gives us that ability to pounce if we need to, and it's something that we regret if we had bundled him in and something came up and we had to make a move. So no big surprise for me. Obviously, what I want to see for player and club is him getting a move as soon as possible. There's nobody any good him hanging around. Plenty of players have departed the squad in the last few months, and they have that intrinsic motivation to play. I hope Emmanuel Dennis has got that. He obviously hasn't forced anything pre-deadline. He's closed that section of the market, and it would be a real waste of his time and his talent now. There's a level for everyone. It hasn't quite worked out. It was a well thought out signing at the time, given what he's done at Watford, but he's just flattered to deceive again and again and again. And I can't see him ever figuring in a Premier League game for us or anybody else. So I don't think there's any imminent incoming that's going to take that 25th spot. And I'm not surprised to see Emmanuel Dennis left out of it altogether.
No.
I mean, there's a good out, isn't there? Going to Saudi. I mean, look at Ivan Toney, which staggered me that he's going over there at 28 years of age, throwing his England career under the bus. But there is that opportunity. And in your sport, Temps, I saw Roy, he got rid of his 70,000 year contract for a 300,000 one in the MLS, is it? The cricket over there, whatever they call it.
Major League Cricket, yeah, nice time to be a sportsman, and these markets opening up all over the world. But you just see that attitudinal thing, don't you? Like, use Joe Worrell as an example. There was no way he was going to sit around in a car park and train a load of kids and be a professional football trainer. And it hurts me that some are. Jordan Henderson did it and regretted it. Ivan Toney may do it and regret it. And Lewis would come on and say it's a short career. They have to capitalise on the talent and make the money for their family, which I understand. But it does no one any good being training with the kids at any Premier League ground across the country, and there'll be an Emmanuel Dennis everywhere. There's probably 12 Emmanuel Dennises at Chelsea, but it is one of those elements of the modern game that I don't enjoy, and I think every footballer should have that pride to go and find somewhere to play.
We had Harry Arter as well. For how long? You know,
I'm never mentioning his name on this podcast again.
Maybe no one wants to sign Dennis. I don't know. You think someone would in Turkey or Saudi?
I just wanted to play football when I was playing. I hated not playing, and I'd have gone anywhere to play. Probably not to Derby, but any, I just wanted to play football. It was different in those. It wasn't about money in those days. It was about the love of the game and wanting to win stuff. But knowing it's a privilege to play as a professional footballer, the mentality has changed, and it's sad sometimes to see that money does rule.
I'll see if he's in his last year of his contract. Just quickly before we go to any other business, Greg, are we maybe say we get another injury in midfield? Do you maybe look in the free agent market then out of desperation, or do you just not just shy away from that because players going to be so far from fitness anyway? It's pointless.
I was just trying to look when we were talking about free agents, and there's some big names in there still, but they're obviously in that pool for a reason. So we've just got to stay fit, haven't we? There's another round of international games coming up in 3 games' time. There'll be over 10 of our players off all around the world again, and that's something that, as a club and as a fan base, we're now going to have to get used to, because success brings things like this. So when you've got half your squad or more flying around the world and 7,000-mile round trips, and you're going to get knocks and you're going to get injuries, but we've just got to trust our recruitment, that we've recruited in the right areas, and a bit of hope as well that the certain positions don't pick up these knocks. I don't believe we'll be looking too hard in the free agency. I just think they'll wait and they'll have their lists ready to go in January again.
Yeah, I agree. Nuno likes this tight squad. I think this works for him. So I don't think we'll. Emmanuel Dennis's contract's up in 2026, if people were wondering. So he's got 2 years left. He signed a pretty long deal. Right. I think that covers everything I wanted to get through. Any other business? Anything you want to add, Greg Mitchell? You've muted yourself.
Sorry, I've got to go out on a bike ride there. When Laura finishes work, she's getting another 20, 30 miles in today. So she's reaching the end of her challenge for Stand Against MND and doing an amazing job. And Sam's been going through the wars a little bit the last couple of weeks. So cheer everyone up and get on my Twitter and see it pinned at the top and just give her that last push. She's trying to hit £2,000 now, and she's a couple of £100 off. So she's doing an unbelievable job. So if anyone can help or share it or just get the word out, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. And I really don't want to go on a bike ride this afternoon.
I'll share it, mate. But I've got 3% of the Twitter followers of Greg Mitchell, so I'm not sure how much help I'll be.
I'll put the link in the chat as well. How you went on 5 Live and you said you were going to go back to bed. Did you actually go back to bed? Because you were WhatsApping at like 8:30 still.
Yeah, I did go back to bed. I was like in between sleep. I was feeling that, when you can't get settled and a bit rough, and I was waiting for Match of the Day to come up on iPlayer. It was a bit late, but yeah, I did have a bit of sleep. But it's back to the grind tomorrow, back to work for the week. So dreading that.
Well, you're a warrior. That's all I can say. Michael Temple, any other business from you?
No, England, Australia at Trent Bridge on Thursday, which I'm looking forward to. Complete sellout, so nothing to plug. And look forward to seeing Garry for a beer at the game as well.
Look, I couldn't send you a message the other day when Notts were playing. 19 extras. They bowled. Can you remember that? I'm not sure what match it was. It was a championship. 50 odd, and 19 of those were extras. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, Notts lost to Essex, unfortunately. We've got some big games to try and bounce back. I noticed someone in the comments was asking me to convince him to renew their membership, but I think we'll survive. I think that Kent and Lancashire are the two that are going to go down, and we can bounce back. But yeah, back to the football. We're not talking about relegation, are we? We're a solid mid-table side with upwardly mobile, and results like that will keep us smiling until Brighton on the telly next weekend.
On the ground, I'm sure Nuno will do that. The thing that still worries me, striker-wise, I'll be delighted that the people who turned us down striker-wise are looking at things and saying, "Oh, perhaps I should have gone there. Too late, lads." But You know, if one of them gets injured, you know, it's always a concern. And you know, there's a hell of a lot of games in December after the international break, so you're going to need so many fit players in a squad, and you know, it's a bit of a concern that we didn't bring anybody in that respect.
Anything you want to plug, Gary? Any final words, or was that it?
No, nothing to plug. No.
Good. Right, we shall leave it there. We shall be back tomorrow evening. I'll do one of those phone-ins, I think, tomorrow evening, because people enjoyed those. So we'll repeat that. Wednesday, we've got a good guest lined up. So check that out. And then Thursday, match preview, and Friday, opposition preview, and then the game's on Sunday. So we'll pick that one up afterwards. Do us a favour and hit like on this video. Do subscribe as well if you haven't already. You can become a channel member. Give us a lovely review on iTunes. Appreciate all the support. Having 550 people with us, I think, was at the peak. So that's fantastic. I think we started pretty early, 9:30 on a Monday. So good to have so many people with us. Very good of you, and very good of you, Greg Mitchell. Thank you very much.
I enjoyed it. I knew it'd be a good one after that. Enjoy your week, Reds, and say hello to all these Liverpool fans.
There's a few around still, I'm sure, even around here. Michael Temple, thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. I was going to tell the story of when Garry Birtles invited me out for a coffee and I ended up becoming his sound recordist. But I know he's got quite an exciting bit of TV that's coming out soon. So I'll wait till that's public knowledge, and then we can look back on it at some point later in the season.
He played a brilliant part. I didn't even know that was going to happen.
We'll talk about it. I've heard all about it.
Delighted I am that Forest beat Liverpool. Always brings a smile to my face when Forest beat Liverpool. It's brilliant.
Perfect note to end on. Perfect note. Right. Have a good day, everyone. If we don't see you tomorrow, then we shall hopefully see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Matt.